think so. I think so. I think you think so. Hi, Mavericks. Welcome back to Food Mavericks 1000, where it's not only about food. This is Teddy LaRose, and today we're going to do some bread dough, and it will turn into a nice tea ring. It's a little bit more advanced than some of the projects, they aren't recipes, projects we've done so far, but it's actually easy. I was daunted for years by bread. Everybody says you gotta knead it so much, you gotta wait for it to rise, and so like decades went by, and I'm doing other stuff like quick breads and stuff, but not bread. Finally, when we were doing some chefing at the giant resort, I started looking into it and found out it's not true that you have to knead. And so this particular project, this particular food ending, actually was one of the bigger hits and one of the more enjoyable things for me to make. So let's get started here. It's not all about food. What does that even mean? Okay. For me, it's not all about food, and I think for most people, it's not all about food, But if it is about food, it should be fun. So this is the project we're doing. Okay. This is for later. This is for now. Okay, now I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd rather something be really bad because you can just chuck it, or really good because then you just like it, but not boring. So, boring is worse than anything to me. I get bored so easily that I was afraid to be a video maverick, okay? Really, I thought, oh my God, you gotta listen to me. So, from you, if you do ever want to respond, please tell me if it's boring. And anything else you like, but I need to know that, Okay, so we've got this, what kind do we have? Actually, any flour will do. Any flour will do. In the sense that whether it's a whole wheat flour, even a pastry wheat flour, bread flour. If you go and use a low-end flour, like you can get, I won't say the brands, in packages at usual places like Walmart, it's not going to be as fresh, or like in my experience, it's tasty. So what I've got going here is bread flour. Why that, if you happen to be able to get it? Bread flour is different from pastry flour, and many of you probably know that. Otherwise, why would it be called that? It's good for bread, but there's reasons it's good for bread, and one of the reasons it's good for bread is because it's from a kind of wheat that has more gluten in it. It's a harder wheat. They call it hard wheat. The more gluten in it makes for that kind of stretchy experience that you have in a bread. And it'll create that kind of texture. It also happens to have more protein than the other kind. The other kind, you might want a cake that isn't so stretchy, then you'd pick a softer wheat. It's also called pastry wheat because it has less gluten, it has less of the stretchy business. Okay, so here we are, and this is something that, we're not going to have later today. So this is one of those things like I'm doing this for tomorrow kind of thing. And so hopefully you got something for today. Okay, so 3 cups of this nice, hopefully I got the right kind. Won't matter. This will also work with the pastry flour. Completely fine. We got that going here. Now over here, because we forgot earlier, we're going to need to melt a little butter for this because it's sort of a sweet bread. Like with coffee cake kind of tea type bread. All right, let's see, how much are they? 1/4 cup. Okay, that's good. You can use less than that. You can use more than that. I've done it with ghee. I have done it with coconut oil. Today we're doing it with butter. It'll be delicious. And we're just going to let that melt while we carry forward over here. This is kind of a jump off from a really wonderful traditional bread that they do in Sweden. And I love it. Not too sweet. You can vary that though. All right. How much do they want in there? Okay, now this is some fun bits. We are going to get the yeast started. For this much flour, which is 3 cups again, one of these packets will do. You can get these at the store in units. Or you can get it in a more bulk form if you get into this and you want this much. And in this case, if you're going to, this worked, I tried it. 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. So what we're going to want to do here is dissolve it. It's like little granules. Always use stainless or ceramic or glass for this because these guys are actually lively, alive. And that's the environment they prefer over, say, aluminum. Use stainless if you're using metal. Okay, so we're going to dissolve this in a certain amount of liquid. Recipes often will call for milk. And if I'm in the mood, I might use milk, but I kind of, from our experience and from my own direct experience, kind of prefer to leave milk all by itself, pretty much. That's because it's a complete food, obviously. And it kind of like, I like to honor it that way, and my digestion seems to appreciate it. So in this case, we're going to use water. Worked before, works now. So that's about a cup. Butter pretty close. And then we're going to give it a little hit of sugar. We could put the full amount of sugar that we're going to put in there, but I don't know. I think for the starter here, we're just going to do a little bit of sugar to give it a little kick. A tablespoon or so. Doesn't really matter. You could probably put the full Monty of sugar of the recipe in there. It's just it doesn't really need to be, and this just to get it going. And this is good to do first. You can do this and then start measuring, unlike what I just did there. Because this way, you want to give this a few minutes to do this job. Oh, yay, you didn't open it yet. Okay. This is happy because it's nice and fresh then. So I like working with things like yeast and cultures like yogurt cultures because they're alive. I kind of feel it. So this is going to be 2.5 teaspoons here. There's 2. There's a half. Now, first to dissolve it in that. Now, one thing about the water, it's really important. I just dumped it in there because I knew I'd done it. You want it to be not too hot. In other words, really not too hot. You'll, kill little guys there. And you don't want it too cold because they don't have an environment that makes them feel like, moving. So, it's got yeast in it now, so it'll be sticky. Before you put the yeast in there, do this with the water or milk. If you can pretty much not feel it, or it's a tiny bit warm, that'll be okay. If it's sort of like warm, don't do it. And if it's like cool, then you haven't heated it enough. So that would be like the one sort of major trick I would say about the whole process actually, is if it gets too hot at this point, it won't like it. Then I'm going to take some of that flour there, just a little like that, and put it in there. Why? You don't have to. You could just dissolve it and then carry on. But if you go ahead and do this, I forget what they call it a sponge. Because if you give it enough time, it'll start looking all bubbly in there. I wish you could smell this. It's fun. It's a fun smell. You can see that. I'm just letting, sort of the flour get in there with the rest there. And that can be a process of, even, you could let that sit for 10, 15 minutes or something, but at least while you do this bit, if you're in a hurry or something. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the sort of stuff we need in with flour. And then there's the sugar element. Now, if you want to be not very sweet, that would be great. I've done that. And this is sort of a sweet bread, so that person likes a third of a cup of sugar in there. That'll be fine. In this case, we're going to do a filling. That's probably about a third. Oh, okay. Not quite a third because I put some in the other. This is me. It is a little flexible here, but a third-ish. And salt. Salt, always salt. Now you do not want salt in the foamy bit, the spongy bit. Salt slows the process. Sugar kickstarts the process. So, again, like if you're lucky enough to have, like a giant kitchen or you're down at the resort or something, you're probably gonna have 2 sets of spoons anyway, which makes it easier. Are we bored yet? It makes it easier because one set, you almost always have dry and wet ingredients in my experience with baking. And then you gotta do this. Okay, so what do we think on salt? This is a 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. That's a pretty good hit of salt, really. Sounds like fun. I like to balance out the sweet and the salt. So we're gonna do see, that's a teaspoon. There's a nice little rounded teaspoon there. Go. Okay. Eggs. Yes, you can. They call for it. I'm not going to. Don't have to. It'll be I kind of love that they add eggs to stuff, just everything. It's just like the richness of life, but as far as that goes, you don't have to for it to be bread. I mean, most breads don't have. Okay, so again, my favorite utensil, we're just gonna get those